The movie begins with the narrator taking us back 35 years to a disturbing case in a small town called North Vernon. It all started in October 1987, when a 16-year-old girl named Tiffany was found dead in her garage on the night of her birthday. Just 2 days later, another 16-year-old girl named Marissa was found dead at her family's cabin in the woods. Then, on Halloween night, a third girl named Heather was found dead at an amusement park. There was one strange connection between all three cases. All three victims were exactly 16 years old, and each crime involved the same unusual pattern. Because of this, the unknown killer became known as the Sweet 16 Killer. But after those three incidents, the killings suddenly stopped. The killer was never identified, and the case remained unsolved for decades. Over the years, the killer's mask became almost legendary. Every Halloween, people dressed up as the Sweet 16 Killer without realizing how terrifying the original case actually was. In the present day, we're introduced to a local man named Chris Dubasage, who runs a true crime podcast about the case. Every Halloween, Chris even takes tourists on a tour of the locations connected to the old murders. Honestly, it seems like this case has become his entire personality. Meanwhile, we meet a teenage girl named Jamie, who's getting ready to attend a Halloween concert. But just before she can leave, her mother Pam stops her. Pam has a very personal reason for being worried. She was actually friends with Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather back in 1987. Even after all these years, the memory of what happened still scares her. Jamie tries to convince her mother that she can take care of herself, but Pam refuses to let her go alone. Eventually, Jamie's father Blake steps in and offers to drive her to the concert. While this is happening, Blake notices someone messaging Pam. When he asks about it, she quickly explains that it's just a group chat with some other mothers. Later, Blake drops Jamie off at her best friend Amelia's house. Amelia's mother Lauren is there too. It turns out Lauren went to school with Pam and Blake back in the day. Lauren complains that her boss expects her to work even on Halloween, so she eventually leaves for work. Blake then takes the girls to the concert. Meanwhile, Pam is home alone. Suddenly, someone wearing the Sweet 16 Killer mask appears at her front door. At first, Pam assumes it's just another person dressed up for Halloween, so she offers him some candy. But then she notices that he's carrying a knife. Pam immediately shuts the door and calls the police. Unfortunately, the masked attacker forces his way inside. Pam doesn't just give up, though. She's spent 35 years preparing herself for the possibility that the killer might someday return. She manages to fight back and even grabs a knife of her own. For a moment, it looks like she might actually scare him away, but the attacker catches her off guard and eventually overwhelms her. Pam doesn't survive the attack. When Jamie learns what happened to her mother, she's completely devastated. And while the family is dealing with the tragedy, Chris is outside broadcasting the story for his podcast. The next day, Jamie returns to school, where the police question her about what happened. They become suspicious of her father, Blake, because Pam and Chris had been communicating frequently. The police even wonder if there was something more going on between Pam and Chris. Jamie immediately rejects the idea. She knows her father would never hurt her mother, and she's frustrated that the police still haven't been able to solve the original case after 35 years. Later, Jamie visits a science fair where Amelia is working on something unbelievable. She's building a homemade time machine. Apparently, Amelia's mother Lauren had previously worked on a similar project, but never managed to finish it. Using Lauren's old research, Amelia believes she can finally make it work, and Jamie suddenly sees an opportunity. If they could travel back to 1987, maybe they could prevent the Sweet 16 Killer from ever starting the killing spree. If they succeed, Pam could still be alive. Amelia sets the machine for October 27, 1987, the day the first incident occurred. That evening, Jamie watches Chris's podcast, but Blake tells her to stop. He thinks Chris has turned a terrible tragedy into entertainment, especially when it comes to something that happened to their family. The following day, Jamie meets Chris at a cafe. She asks him directly whether he and Pam were having an affair. Chris denies it. He explains that Pam had become deeply interested in solving the Sweet 16 case, so the two of them had been communicating about the investigation. Chris then reveals something Jamie didn't know. After the final incident in 1987, Pam had received a threatening message from the killer, claiming that she would be next. That information leaves Jamie even more confused. Later, she returns to the science fair to meet Amelia, but before she can do anything, the Sweet 16 Killer suddenly appears. Jamie runs for her life and eventually hides inside Amelia's strange time machine setup, which is disguised as a photo booth. She desperately tries to activate it. The killer follows her and attacks the machine. The sudden surge of electricity causes the machine to activate, and before the killer can reach Jamie, she's transported through time. When Jamie opens her eyes, she realizes she's somehow landed in 1987. At first, she's completely stunned, but then she remembers why she's here. Her mother is still alive, and Jamie decides she's going to change history. She places an out-of-order sign on the machine so nobody else accidentally uses it. Then she asks a woman nearby where she can find Pam. The woman tells her that Pam is currently at school, so Jamie heads straight there. She introduces herself as an exchange student from Canada and somehow manages to get enrolled. During gym class, Jamie gets the shock of her life. She sees Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather, the three girls whose death she already knows about. But there's another surprise waiting for her. Jamie finally meets her teenage mother, and Pam is nothing like the mother Jamie remembers. Instead of being kind and patient, teenage Pam is arrogant, confident, and part of the popular crowd. Jamie soon discovers that Pam and her friends have a reputation for bullying other students. She also learns that Tiffany's birthday party is happening that very night, and Jamie knows exactly what is supposed to happen there. She tries to convince the girls to cancel the party, but they don't take her seriously. So Jamie goes to the police. She tells them that someone is going to attack Tiffany that night. The officers don't believe her. They even laugh because, as far as they know, North Vernon has never experienced anything like that. With the police refusing to help, Jamie decides to find Lauren instead. She tracks down Amelia's mother at school and tells her the entire story. At first, Lauren is understandably confused, but then Jamie mentions details about Lauren's secret research and the notebook where she recorded her time machine experiments. That's enough to convince Lauren that Jamie is telling the truth. Jamie explains everything: the future, the murders, the time machine, and her plan to save Pam. There's just one problem. Jamie needs a way to return to 2023, and the machine apparently needs a modern connection that doesn't exist in 1987. So now Lauren has to figure out how to send Jamie back home. Meanwhile, back in 2023, Blake is desperately searching for Jamie. Eventually, Amelia arrives and explains what happened. She tells everyone that Jamie used the time machine and traveled into the past. Nobody knows what to believe, but Chris is immediately fascinated. Back in 1987, Jamie and Lauren attend Tiffany's birthday party. There, Jamie meets a quiet, bullied student named Doug, who will eventually become her school principal. But then Jamie notices someone else. A good-looking teenage boy catches her attention, and she soon discovers something that completely blows her mind. The boy is her father, Blake. Even crazier, Blake is currently dating Tiffany. Her parents haven't even met romantically yet. Jamie suddenly realizes that changing the past could completely change her own future. She tries to keep Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather safe, but the girls aren't interested in listening to her. During the party, Tiffany goes upstairs with a boy. A little later, she notices something strange and goes to investigate. That's when the Sweet 16 killer appears. Jamie desperately searches the house for Tiffany, but she's too late. Tiffany becomes the first victim. However, something important has changed. In the original timeline, Tiffany was found in the garage. This time, she is discovered somewhere else. Jamie realizes that her actions are already changing history. Afterward, Jamie and Lauren take Pam home because they don't want her to be alone. When Pam asks Jamie how she knew about Tiffany, Jamie jokingly claims she's psychic. She then asks Pam if she can think of anyone who might want revenge on her or her friends.
Pam admits that there are plenty of people who might have a reason. She and her friends have treated a lot of people badly over the years. Meanwhile, in 2023, Amelia continues working on the time machine. Chris arrives and takes a look at the machine. While talking with Amelia, he suddenly realizes something strange. His memories of the original case are changing. The location where Tiffany died is no longer the same. Chris realizes that Jamie's actions in the past are creating a ripple effect through time. He and Amelia then examine an old photograph, and there she is, Jamie, standing in 1987. There's now no doubt that she really traveled through time. Back in 1987, Jamie tries to prevent the second incident. She convinces Marissa not to go to the cabin where she originally died. Instead, Marissa suggests going to her parents' place. Jamie agrees. At school, Jamie is paired with a quiet and frequently bullied student named Damon. She notices some strange drawings in his notebook and briefly wonders if he could somehow be connected to the killer. Later, Marissa and the other girls pick Jamie up, but when they arrive at the location, Jamie gets another shock. It isn't a normal house. It's the exact same cabin where Marissa was supposed to die. Jamie immediately tells everyone they need to leave. Nobody listens. Instead, they decide to party there. Jamie tries to establish some basic safety rules, but everyone treats her like she's being paranoid. Eventually, one of the guys gets annoyed with her and locks her outside. Jamie searches for another way inside. She eventually finds a window and looks through it. Inside, she sees Heather lying unconscious on a bed. Jamie realizes the killer is already there. The attacker approaches Heather, but Heather wakes up just in time and manages to escape the room. A chase follows, and Heather tries to get away, but the killer catches up with her. This time, history changes again. Heather becomes the next victim instead of Marissa. The others try to fight back, but they're unable to stop the attacker. Eventually, the killer disappears. The survivors rush to the police station and report everything. Jamie even tries to give the police evidence from the scene, but there's another problem. The officers have no idea how modern forensic testing works. Back at school, school, Jamie talks to Damon. She discovers that he's just a normal, awkward student and probably has nothing to do with the murders. Doug then arrives and tells them to get to class. After everything they've experienced, the group finally realizes that they need a real plan. They decide to use Marissa as bait. Jamie knows that Marissa is supposed to be the final victim in the original timeline. This time, they'll be waiting for the killer. Meanwhile, Lauren is working on a way to power the time machine. She plans to convert a popular amusement attraction into a temporary time travel device. At the same time, Chris and Amelia continue working on the machine in 2023. Then, Halloween night finally arrives. Marissa walks through the amusement park, completely unaware that the killer is following her. She enters a haunted attraction where the others are waiting, and soon enough, the killer appears. The group tries to stop him, but the situation quickly gets out of control. Jamie manages to fight back, and eventually the group works together to overpower the attacker. They pull off his mask, and the person underneath is someone none of them expected. Doug, the quiet, bullied student. But why? The truth finally comes out. A year earlier, a student named Trish had died in a tragic car accident. Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather had bullied her badly. They even mocked her appearance and gave her a cruel nickname. One night, the girls invited Trish over and pressured her into drinking because they wanted her to talk about rumors involving their coach. The situation went too far. Trish left the house upset and intoxicated and later became involved in the accident. What the girls didn't know was that Trish was Doug's girlfriend. Doug was devastated by what happened, so he created the Sweet 16 killer persona and began targeting the people he believed were responsible. Jamie is horrified when she realizes how cruel her mother and her friends had been. She starts wondering whether Pam deserved what happened, but Pam explains that she wasn't actually at the sleepover that night. She had argued with Tiffany and stayed away. Marissa confirms that Pam wasn't involved. Now Jamie has another question. If Doug was the original Sweet 16 killer, why did someone threaten Pam years later? And why did Pam eventually become a victim in 2023? Before anyone can figure it out, something unexpected happens. A second killer appears. Marissa is attacked, and the group realizes that the real nightmare isn't over. The new killer starts pursuing Jamie. Even Chris's father becomes involved in the chaos while broadcasting live. Fortunately, the time machine is finally ready. Lauren explains that once the machine starts moving, Jamie has to stay inside. Otherwise, the force could seriously injure her. But before Jamie can leave, the killer arrives. Jamie tells Lauren to get out of there. Lauren escapes, and Jamie activates the machine. Then Pam arrives to help her daughter. The two of them find themselves trapped inside the spinning machine with the killer. As the machine accelerates, everyone is forced against the walls. The killer somehow manages to move despite the intense force. He approaches Pam and attacks her. Jamie manages to push her mother away from danger, but during the struggle, the killer's mask comes off, and Jamie finally sees the face underneath. It's Chris, the same Chris who has spent years talking about the Sweet 16 killer. Chris finally reveals the truth. He wasn't the original killer, Doug was. But Chris discovered the story and became obsessed with keeping the legend alive. He wanted the Sweet 16 killer case to remain popular because it gave his podcast attention. He even created the threatening message to make the story more dramatic. And Chris had another reason. He was constantly compared to his successful father, and he couldn't stand living in his shadow. Eventually, Chris admits that he was responsible for his father's death as well. Now, Chris turns his attention toward Jamie. The two struggle inside the machine, but Jamie refuses to give up. She manages to gain the advantage and knocks Chris off balance. Then she uses a nearby nail gun to stop him. Finally, she sends him into the moving mechanism. Chris is gone. Jamie has done it. She returns to the present, but when she arrives in 2023, she immediately realizes that something is different. Pam is alive. She's still married to Blake. Jamie can't believe it. Her plan actually worked. Lauren also remembers what happened and explains that the timeline has changed significantly. Because Jamie altered the past, the future she originally knew no longer exists. Lauren has even written everything down in a book so they can keep track of the differences between the two timelines. Then Jamie notices another strange change. Her parents got together much earlier in this new timeline, and Jamie discovers that she now has a completely different family history. Even her own identity has changed. Meanwhile, Amelia is still her best friend, and Lauren has gone on to become a successful bioengineer. And then there's Chris. In this new timeline, Chris has no idea what really happened. After witnessing his father's death on live television, he eventually ended up living in a monastery in India. He has no idea that the person responsible was actually another version of himself from a completely different timeline. And with that, the movie comes to an end, showing us just how unpredictable changing the past can be. Because Jamie didn't simply save her mother, she completely rewrote the future.